President, I move to proceed to calendar number 168, H.R. 5371.
Clerk will report.
Motion to proceed to calendar 168, H.R. 5371, an act making continuing appropriations and extensions for fiscal year 2026 and for other purposes.
Mr. President, we are 37 days into an entirely avoidable government shutdown. And I say avoidable, Mr. President, because it was. Democrats instigated this shutdown by rejecting a clean, nonpartisan funding resolution. Republicans weren't asking them to swallow a bunch of new conservative policies. There isn't a single partisan policy in the bill. And yet Democrats couldn't bring themselves to take yes for an answer. Democrats, of course, have claimed their decision to shut down the government's about health care. They want Republicans to bail out their Obamacare mess. And as I've said probably 1,000 times now, Mr. President, Republicans are 100% willing to sit down and talk about the mess that Democrats have created. We're just not going to have that conversation while Democrats are holding the federal government hostage. That was our position in September. That was our position in October. And yes, it's still our position in November. We're just waiting for Democrats to take yes for an answer. Mr. President, I do know that Democrats have been under a lot of pressure from the far left. The far left pushed them to shut down the government. And the far left has pushed them to keep it shut down. As one House Democrat told Axios yesterday, and I quote, "There would be hell to pay if Senate Democrats don't let events play out," end quote. There would be hell to pay if Senate Democrats don't let events play out. That quote from a House Democrat just yesterday. Well, Mr. President, what events need to play out? What more needs to happen for the far left to be satisfied? The pain this shutdown has caused is only getting worse. 40 million Americans who rely on food assistance programs are now at risk of going hungry without a resolution to the shutdown. I'm sure these Americans are doing everything in their power to feed their families, but they can't do that forever. Federal workers have now gone without pay for more than a month, including the people in this building. Will the far left not be satisfied until federal workers and military families are getting their Thanksgiving dinner from a food bank? Because that's where we're headed. And then, Mr. President, there's air travel. Yesterday, the Transportation Secretary announced that as a matter of safety, the Department of Transportation is requiring mandatory reduction in air traffic starting tomorrow because of shutdown staffing issues. That means widespread flight cancellations, supply chain issues, hundreds of thousands of passengers dealing with disruptions to travel every day. The impact this will have will be immense. And all of it because Democrats cannot bring themselves to accept a clean, nonpartisan funding resolution, something that happened 13 times when they had the majority and President Biden was in the White House. So I ask the question again, Mr. President, what more do Democrats need? They got their chairs at the left-wing No Kings rally. They kept their base satisfied through the fall campaigns and Election Day. And as of Tuesday, they have the extremely dubious honor of instigating the longest and most severe government shutdown in history. How much more do Americans have to endure before Democrats are satisfied? Mr. President, the Democrat leader said yesterday that every day gets better for Democrats. The number 2 Democrat in the House has said that the American people's suffering takes a back seat to Democrats' precious leverage. And the senior senator from Vermont, a leading voice on the left, wrote an op-ed over the weekend calling for Democrats to keep the government shut down forever, as far as I can tell. Mr. President, I hope that's not where most Democrats are. I hope at least a few Democrats can see that this can't go on any longer. People are suffering, and it's getting worse every day. A furloughed federal employee, a mother of 5 in Maryland, told the New York Times last week, and I quote, "I don't know how to get the mortgage paid," end quote. Federal workers are taking on second jobs to make ends meet. Food banks across the country are overwhelmed. And American families are looking to the holiday season with apprehension. Mr. President, Democrats have a choice to make. Are they going to continue to bow to pressure from voices on the far left telling them to keep up their opposition? Or are they going to stop the American people's suffering and end this shutdown? I hope enough of them are willing to do the right thing. And I hope they do it soon. The American people can't wait for events to play out. Mr. President, I yield the floor, and I suggest the absence of a quorum.
Clerk, call the roll.
Yes. I ask unanimous consent the quorum be dispensed with.
Without objection.
So, Mr. President, Americans plagued by high costs fired a political torpedo this week at Donald Trump and Republicans. They spoke loudly and clearly. We are fed up with the high cost of living. We're fed up with the tax on health care. We're fed up with your broken promises. And the question now is, will Donald Trump and Republicans listen to the American people? Will Republicans finally work with Democrats to reopen the federal government and negotiate a fix to the ACA premium crisis? Will Donald Trump finally take a break from his lavish ballrooms to help families who can't afford the rent, can't afford health care? The American people are waiting, and Democrats are ready. We want to have negotiations. It's been long enough. Look, if Republicans were smart, they would get the message after Tuesday that their do-nothing strategy isn't working. Even Donald Trump knows Americans hold Republicans responsible for this mess. Here's what he said. The shutdown was a big factor. He was talking about, why did you lose the election? He said the shutdown was a big factor, negative for the Republicans. Again, Donald Trump's words. The shutdown was a big factor, negative for the Republicans. That's what he said about the elections Tuesday. This is probably the smartest thing President Trump has said in a while. Donald Trump clearly is feeling pressure to bring the shutdown to an end. Well, I have good news for the president. Meet with Democrats, reopen the government, fix the ACA crisis. That's the best way to put this crisis behind us. And I will say something else about what happened on Tuesday. The single biggest worry Americans feel right now is the cost of living. If you could boil down the theme of Tuesday's elections down to one word, it was affordability. And Republicans absolutely whiffed on that by focusing on everything but affordability. In fact, Republicans have governed all year like drunken sailors. Instead of lowering costs, they plundered health care into oblivion. They've cut taxes for billionaires while kicking millions off health care. They've approved luxury jets for cabinet officials and acted as if there were zero consequences for their actions. After spending all year intoxicated on right-wing policies that do nothing to lower costs, Republicans shouldn't be surprised that Tuesday hit them like a bad hangover. And now that Tuesday is over, we're suddenly reading all these stories about how Donald Trump is finally going to start getting serious about messaging on affordability. One story said it's going to be the big focus for him next year. Wow. Where's this guy been? What fantasies is he living in? And are we supposed to applaud Donald Trump now that he's finally going to focus more on affordability? And he says on messaging, the American people want results, not a message that brings no results and produces no progress. Apparently, Donald Trump even said on Bret Baier's show that Republicans aren't doing a good job talking about affordability. No kidding. That would be putting it kindly after everything they did this summer to make life affordable to billionaires. So look, if Donald Trump really wants to get serious about affordability, here's a free tip. He should work with Democrats to actually make health care more affordable, not even say he wants to do something vacuously. We should extend the enhanced ACA premium credits, which Senate Republicans voted against 3 times. If Donald Trump has any interest in keeping his promise to lower costs, he should maybe focus more on fixing health care than sending billions to Argentina and trying to win a Nobel Prize. The American people have spoken. It's time Republicans finally listen and work with Democrats to bring this shutdown and health care crisis to an end. I yield the floor.